was one issue where we stressed we would try to do better. And the mere fact, I mean, the existence, this working group had quite some obscure existence. Nobody knew about it until some years ago. It didn't even show up in the list of subsidiary bodies until we joined in 2009. What we did is there have been interactions with the members, with the affected member countries. So they have been invited to meetings with the working group. In October last year, for the first time, Austria organized a so-called ARIA formula meeting, which is an open meeting of the Security Council where we invited all UN member states and also NGOs. ICTJ was represented, the ICRC, to really get input from as many stakeholders as possible. And the fact that I'm sitting here, actually I'm only 50% here to talk, the other 50%, or more than 50%, I'm here to listen to what the audience and people have to say. Thank you.
Well, that's a relief then. The Security Council is going to listen to us. Larry Johnson, as with all your background from New York and the legal office and ICTY, and now a professor, any comments from you on this? How much we could look forward to Security Council to play a role here?
Thank you very much, Madam High Commissioner, Judge. As Conrad said, it's fairly obvious that from a UN law point of view, the Tribunal is a subsidiary organ of the Council under Article 29 of the Charter. So it's the Council that's responsible for what happens when this thing is wound up, as it were. And as Conrad indicated, they have taken that role, that responsibility, seriously. And I would, better to be closer? Okay, I apologize. I would emphasize that in the working group, they have constantly been in touch with the tribunals themselves, and there's constantly been back and forth, so that the exercise in the Security Council could be considered closed in some sense, but certainly it has not been in any way closed to tribunal concerns. And in fact, from my memory, quite a few, the input of the tribunals has been essential to the work of the Security Council Working Group. And then, as Conrad said, they have gone outside to talk to the affected countries, and indeed had one area formula meeting. In terms of the residual mechanism, and in the second bullet, but I may be jumping ahead, about ensuring long-term access and preservation of the archives, that too is before the Security Council, because the archives are UN property. Now, there may be some member states that may disagree with regard to Rule 70 material, whether or not that's really UN property or not. But I think the organization takes the view that property that's within that is used by the tribunal for its purposes are UN archives. So the UN has to take care of what happens to those materials, and the Security Council has an important role to play, and obviously the Secretary General as well. Thank you.
Peter, we're always interested in the European perspective and financial implications. Did you hear me? Yeah, I'm now inviting Peter van der Vliet to ask about European group perspective, especially with the view to possible difficulties with financing of the residual mechanisms, and how ready Europe is to take this burden if there is no consensus in the UN, which I think we should plan for.
Thank you, Madam High Commissioner, and thanks for having me on this panel. I'm that other government representative. I don't represent Austria, but I represent the Netherlands. And I'd just like to refer to the first panel and the lack of gender balance. I'm happy to be on a very gender-balanced second panel. I speak here, Madam Moderator, I speak here on behalf of the Netherlands, and I can't really speak on behalf of the EU. But I'd like to say that I've been very much impressed by the work that has already gone into thinking about the structure and functions and financing of a residual mechanism or residual mechanisms, if you take a broader look and you include the other courts and tribunals as well. We now know, for example, which task a residual mechanism should perform at a minimum. We also have a pretty good idea about the various parts that would constitute a residual mechanism. Basically an administrative core, an archives part, and courtroom capacity, either in-house or made available from elsewhere. We also know that it will be crucial to keep down the cost of a residual mechanism, to keep it lean, efficient, and cost effective. Now, I don't think I'll be telling you a secret if I say that the Netherlands would be honored to host a residual mechanism, and that is why we are following the discussions in the informal working group of the Security Council, but also elsewhere, with great interest. Not only because we are interested in hosting a residual mechanism, but because the subject is important in itself as well. There will be unfinished business after the tribunal closes, and other tribunals as well. And this unfinished business must be taken care of. So where do we stand? You asked about financing. The Netherlands, I always draw the comparison with the establishment of the Special Tribunal for Lebanon. When we started the preparations to host the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, and Mr. Johnson can attest to that because we worked closely together, we didn't have much to go by at the beginning. We were basically in the dark as to the parameters of the Special Tribunal. And then we decided just to start our preparations on the basis of working assumptions about the size, about security, location, etc., staffing. And I think the thinking has progressed much more on the issue of a residual mechanism at this stage than when we were at the beginning of hosting the Special Tribunal for Lebanon. However, as a potential and interested host country, we would appreciate more guidance, first and foremost from the Security Council, but also, if you take a broader view, from the wider international community, from the countries in the region, from management committees, member states, etc., civil society, as to what exactly the parameters of this residual mechanism should look like. And then I think it's up to us. I'm speaking for the Netherlands. We have the legal infrastructure, we have the physical infrastructure, we have the experience in hosting international legal institutions, and then it will be up to us to deliver what you want. Thank you.
Well, of course, we commend the Dutch government's support and the initiative it is taking. And I also wish the government well over the current crisis. So this makes us move naturally into the next question on residual mechanisms, on ensuring long-term access and preservation of the archives, including court records, audiovisual materials. So here I thought I'll ask Mirsad Tokatcha to speak to us about this. And I would also invite your views, Natasha Kandi. And let me say how proud I feel to be sitting on the panel with you as the head of one of the most prominent NGOs, Humanitarian Law Center in the Balkans. You created that long before the ICTY. So we look forward to hearing both of you on the residual mechanisms. And of course, you can swing into the third question since it's related. So, Mirsad then first.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Ja ću govorit bosanski, što moj kolega Čičak reče da se I ta riječ čuje.
I'm going to speak Bosnian. I would like that language also to be heard. When things go wrong from the beginning, then it is difficult to change the turn of affairs. Matters relating to the tribunal archives began, or that story began several years ago, and it got off on the wrong foot, and it seems to be proceeding in that way too. Please, the key question of the legacy of the tribunal is not where the archive would be located and who will preserve it and which security measures will be planned, and whether the area or the location where the archives are kept, the air humidity would be 60 or 70%. What will the building look like? All these are secondary issues and not that important as far as I'm concerned. The key question, why we need this archive and how to use this archive, so that in the future we could prevent possible conflicts that could occur, how this rich material contained in the archives can be turned into a lasting memorial that would remind us in the region of the tragedy of war, and what would be the message to the divided societies in the Balkans would be sent by that collection of documents. This is one thing. The second thing is, don't worry, there are still organizations which have been working for years to preserve the legacy of the tribunal. All those who cooperated with the tribunal, and I count myself among them. I recall October 1994, when Mr. Goldstone came to encircle Sarajevo to discuss the tribunal. We are going to take care of the tribunal legacy. We are still doing that even now, thinking of tools and the way to promote it and so on. We're talking about our collective memory here, how to transform the society in the region from the conflict to the post-conflict area, period of freedom and peace, and how to confront the collective histories and the recollections, something that will constitute our historical memory. Because at this point in time, we're in a situation where 3 or 4 or 5 collective memories have been created based on a lack of adequate documentation. The tribunal archives would be one of the sources for this. Please don't forget, we can talk about the legacy of our courts in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia and Serbia. They're also going to produce archives of crucial importance, and that should also be a part of that legacy, the overall legacy that would remind us of the 91 to 95 period, and it will be lasting impact for our collective memory. We have attempts here at a brutal revisionism of facts that are established and truths established beyond reasonable doubt. Some things that have been established beyond reasonable doubt by the tribunal are now being revised in the region. And of course, the remark we heard during the panel discussion here, this is not just a question of archivists, judges, sociologists, historians, but it's a matter for all of the citizens. How can that be shared with them? I come from Bosnia. I am a participant, an eyewitness, someone who experienced many of those events. And for me, this archive is important, not only because 161 individuals have been sentenced in these trials. Thousands should face justice. Only when that whole process is completed, then we're going to have a complete picture. And this is an appeal to the UN, to the Security Council, to think about this. We would like to see what sort of effect we would have this archive achieve. They're important, not because of the past. There are many crucial answers that are important for the societies in that region right now. And because this is owned by the UN should then decide to have that located in the region so that people from the region have access to this. All of us. I'm a man born after World War II. I did grow up in a post-war period, so all the tales about the Holocaust, about Auschwitz, Buchenwald, many concentration camps were just hazy stories to me. When I had the opportunity to go to Auschwitz and visit some of those camps and to go to the Holocaust Museum in Berlin, my idea, and I'm over 55 years old, of those events has completely changed. My recollection is changing, and this is why I would like to make a warning. Let's take this whole matter on the archives out of a bureaucratic context, out of technical debates, and let's place it in this context of our historical memory, because that is the only way we will achieve any real effects. This should serve as a warning to us in the region. I would be able to bring my grandson to that, but